Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the MOBI sessions for the Caribbean. We will wait a few more minutes for the last ones to join. We will start soon. Thank you for your patience. Okay, let's start. So welcome everyone. Thank you for assisting this seminar. As you may know, we are in the fourth MOVE webinar focused on the Caribbean region. Today we will have Katy VanDunsen with us to talk about the project of Rutas de Monteverde in Costa Rica. This project was designed with a map of charging electric vehicle charging points in several, more than 50 different locations, offering electricity to visitors in order for them to foster the use of electric vehicles in the area instead of the combustion engine vehicles. To talk about the project, we have, as I said, Katy VanDunsen. She is the coordinator of the Monteverde Climate Change Resilient Commission. She grew up in the United States. In 1980, she moved to Monteverde, Costa Rica, which was soon to become one of the regional ecotourism destinations. Over the last 40 years, she has organized communities in Central America to achieve sustainable development and conservation. Since 2016, she has coordinated CORCLIMA, the Monteverde Commission for Resilience to Climate Change. She also teaches yoga. So thank you so much, Katy, for your time, for the presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to share the story of the Ruth Electrica. And can everyone see my screen now?
Okay, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yes, there you go. Perfectly.
Okay. So today I'm going to share with you the story of the Ruth Electrica Monteverde, which is very much a grassroots initiative to accelerating electric mobility in Costa Rica, and hopefully can be a model for the world. Monteverde is located in the mountains of northwest Costa Rica. You can see on this map the relationship with the rest of the Caribbean. We're right near the continental divide. Since the 1980s, we have become one of the world's premier ecotourism destinations, and some actually claim that we are the first ecotourism destination. So it's quite natural that we would also try to be sustainable and authentic, to be consistent with the conservation of the forest. We have a local population of only about 6,000 people, but we have approximately, in a normal year, about 250,000 visitors. This is the three-wattled bellbird, one of our iconic bird species. So I am the coordinator of CORCLIMA, the Monteverde Commission for Resilience and Climate Change, which is got the goal of uniting Monteverde to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, capture carbon with our forests and our soils, and to adapt to climate change as fast as possible, and to try to be a model for others. We are a public-private initiative. We are officially a commission of the Monteverde Municipal District Council, but we are also a special project, the Monteverde Community Fund. So we can be a chameleon going between the private sector and the public sector as needed. CORCLIMA is really very much a grassroots movement, more than just a commission of 8 people. It is also a network of many leaders working together. We are signers on the Pacto Global de Alcaldes, or the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. And we're also one of the first 6 regions in Costa Rica to be part of the National Program for Carbon Neutrality. We are very much aligned with the National Decarbonization Program, which has as its second goal to transform the fleet of light vehicles to zero emissions, powered by renewable energy and not fossil fuels. This was started just about 1.5 years ago, that decarbonization plan. And Costa Rica is in a very special position to have electric mobility, because almost all of our electric grid is renewable, from hydro, wind, geothermal. And really our biggest problem and our biggest fossil fuel footprint is coming from transportation in Costa Rica. CORCLIMA is also very much following the national climate change strategy for mitigation and adaptation. And the 4 ways that we're working is to try to measure the changes in emissions and where they're coming from, trying to develop local capacity and technology to be able to act on mitigation and adaptation, educate people and try to change the culture, and mobilize resources to make all this happen. So thinking about measuring our emissions, we're in our second inventory right now and don't have those results yet. So our most recent results are from 2016. And you can see that 1/3 of our emissions in the Monteverde district comes from transportation. And most of that is coming from tourist transportation. This is something that's changed extremely rapidly. So in 1980, there were a total of 5 vehicles in the whole region, only only 5 automobiles. There were trucks and motorcycles, but only 5 automobiles. And this was the parking lot of the Monteverde Cloud Forest Preserve, one of the main destinations in Monteverde. This is what the parking lot looked like in 2017, and almost all of those vehicles are rent-a-cars. Car travel is equal to about 8% of global emissions, and tourism is one of Costa Rica's largest, it is Costa Rica's main source of foreign income. So this is all very important to us. How are we going to deal with all these emissions from cars? Part of the national program for carbon neutrality is suggesting that each region has its own mobility plan. So our regional mobility plan basically comes down to, let's reduce the number of cars by getting people into collective transportation and improving life for pedestrians and bikers, and at the same time accelerating the transition to electric vehicles. We have many different tourist attractions, and almost all of them have their own transportation system. We've been encouraging them to consolidate their efforts, and especially since the pandemic, there is greater interest in this. Tomorrow we are presenting 4 potential bus routes for a new public bus system for locals and visitors alike. This is based on 4 years of research looking at the needs of both local people and the visitors who are coming. And we're also working on collective taxis. So our Ruth Electrica is really just part of a bigger system of looking at an intermodal transportation system that also is trying to find other ways to move people around, improving sidewalks and encouraging safe biking as a mode to get around. So we've had this question for 4 years of how can we accelerate the transition to electric mobility while at the same time supporting tourism and the needs of tourists. I personally have been driving an electric golf cart for about 10 years. I know that in some regions, this is a great way for tourists to get around. In our region, we have a lot of hills and a lot of rain, and it might respond to some of the needs, but obviously it's not how people are going to be traveling around the country. We did do a survey of visitors to Monteverde and found that the main thing is that people do want electric vehicle options. Generally, there are environmentally conscious people that come here and they want to be able to rent electric cars, but their main concern is range anxiety. So 65% of the people who responded said the main reason they would not rent an electric vehicle is because they would be afraid that they wouldn't have a place to charge their vehicles and they'd run out of charge. The idea for us for the Ruth Electrica really started with Monica Araya, who I encourage you all to Google her and listen to her TED Talk. She's got 2 TED Talks, look for the earlier one. If you haven't heard of her, she's really the champion of electric mobility in Costa Rica. And she came to visit us in 2017 and said, basically, in order to deal with range anxiety, you've got to understand infrastructure. Most people charge their electric vehicles at home. I'd say 80–90% of people who have electric vehicles charge them at home. Now, obviously, tourists aren't going to be able to do that. So in addition to the national infrastructure that is being installed, we need many more chargers. And she suggested the idea of creating the Ruth Electrica Monteverde and having an electric vehicle friendly community that's offering a network of charging points. And that at those charging points, people wouldn't just be sitting around waiting for their cars to charge, as you might at many of the other charging stations that are being installed. But it's charging with a purpose. It's charging while having fun. It's charging while walking around the forest, while eating a meal, while sleeping in a hotel. It's charging with a purpose and having fun on the way. I would like to share this video. It's in Spanish, but at that time, and then even a year later, we had never had an electric car come, a real electric car come to Monteverde. And this is the video of the first electric car that came to Costa Rica, or no, to Monteverde. It's in Spanish. We have a very steep, lot of steep hills here, and it was not a problem. It only costs about $5 US, $6 US to get there.
El sentido esencial es un ahorro de combustible y una no emisión de gases de efecto
It's a great savings on gasoline.
Unos ahorros aproximadamente entre 100 y 120 mil colones de combustible al mes. El trayecto
We save about
$400
aprovechamos
a cargar
a month
pero
in
no es
gas.
necesario. El vehículo puede llegar de Liberia con una sola carga.
And we were able to arrive with one charge
Verdaderamente
from
el
Liberia.
silencio que tiene el vehículo, ver por el retrovisor y no ver una estela de humo, para mí eso hace que valga la pena.
These cars are silent.
Yo creo que es hora de que los carros eléctricos empiecen a conquistar Costa Rica.
Electric cars are
En todo
going
lugar en Costa
to,
Rica donde haya electricidad, usted puede llegar y conectar el carro.
wherever you are in Costa Rica, where there's electricity, you can connect your car. And so that's the basic idea of the Ruth Electrica. So most of you know all about electric mobility. You know that they're quiet vehicles. You can recognize one because it's got a plug and no muffler, and that you can, and there's a lot more space because there's not a big motor. There's just a little one. So how did we go about creating the first Ruth Electrica, or electric route, in Costa Rica? It's really a prototype. It's really an experiment, learning along the way. And we started with infrastructure, trying to get businesses to offer electric charging points, basically plugs, 120 volts or 240 volts, putting up signs, having a map so people could find their way, and also trying to provide them with support. So basically, there are three kinds of charging points. One is the regular 120 volt charging point on the left, which is very slow. Then there's the 240, which is just a regular 240 volt plug, and then you've got the L2 chargers that are more expensive. So this is a little bit of an overview here. For the basic sockets, the user has to have their own charging cord, just like you have your own charging cord for a telephone, and plug it into a 120 volt. It's going to take at least 8 to 10 hours, if not more like 40, depending upon your car. If you've got a 240 volt, that's much faster, maybe 3 to 6 hours for a full charge. Now, if you've actually got a charger, then, which can cost between $600 and $2,000, you can charge it in about 3 to 4 hours. And then there are the fast chargers, which are installed by the government in Costa Rica. And they cost between $50,000 and $100,000 to install, and you can charge your vehicle in 20 to 30 minutes. Fortunately, we found about 80 different businesses locally, business people who were really excited to come on board and be some of the pioneers in offering charging points, and we're working on having legal agreements with all of them. We have a Google map where you can go to find these electric charging points. It's a guide not only to where you can find them, but also to the businesses that are offering them. And we are working on providing technical support as well. This is probably one of our weak points that we are working on, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The second phase has been working on promoting the Ruth Electrica, launching it, getting it out there in social media, for having more videos, talks, podcasts, working with travel agencies and rent-a-cars, working with ISE and Waze and international electric mobility associations. We launched the Ruth Electrica in August 2019 with about 60 charging points in the town of Monteverde, or right here at the destination, and another 20 on the routes coming to Monteverde. We've gotten quite a bit of good press, both on radio and television and in the newspaper. And we've had a social media campaign with promoting the pioneers of the Ruth Electrica, which was one of the reasons that we really got quite a bit of buy-in from the businesses. And many of these businesses have also taken advantage of other apps like PlugShare or Electrocar to be able to share the information that they're offering. Charge. It's a way for these businesses to distinguish themselves and show that they're part of the vanguard. Go to our website, CORCLIMA.org. Actually, wait a couple of days because we're working on it right now. But you'll be able to hear a couple of podcasts. The one on the left is one that a student won a National Geographic Prize for and got to go to the Galapagos Islands because of it. We've also had local fairs and have offered test drives to local people. So now there are 6 electric cars, automobiles in Monteverde, and many of the taxi drivers who are needing to replace their cars are also interested in buying cars. So we're promoting it among locals as well as visitors. We've been invited to present at national and international fairs and tourism fairs, and have been working with the National Tourism Institute as well as the Chamber of Ecological and Sustainable Tourism here in Costa Rica. But perhaps some of the most important actions we've had has been with the Costa Rican Association for Electric Mobility, ASOMOVE, because they are the people in Costa Rica with electric cars, and they are the ones who are coming up and using the system and giving us direct feedback on how it's working and how it can be improved. In Costa Rica, there are close to 3,000 people who have electric cars in the private sector, in addition to many in the other sector. Oops, I'm missing the picture here, but we fortunately do have 2 rental companies that are renting electric cars. Adobe has a couple of hybrid Mitsubishi Outlanders, and National Rent-A-Car has 10 BMWs. So, and the next phase that we're just beginning to move into is scaling this to the rest of Costa Rica. In January, La Fortuna, another destination not far away, inaugurated their own Ruth Electrica with 15 businesses, and we're hoping to move to 14 other municipalities. We have a draft of manuals on how, both one manual for organizers of Ruth Electricas, and that can be people in municipalities, it can be people in Chamber of Tourism's, it can be whoever is interested in a region to be able to create it, and also a manual for the businesses that are offering charge. This is very much an effort to integrate public and private initiatives, and we're going to keep working on that. And we are in the process of establishing a national association of Ruth Electricas, of electric routes, and beginning to figure out how we can measure the impact and measure how much these charging points are actually being used. The Costa Rica USA Foundation, CRUSA, has just given us a grant to publish these manuals to also, and they'll be available online for all of you in both English and Spanish, and also to create this association, to create our branding, and to have our website. The tourism industry is very much on board locally with Monteverde Chamber of Tourism. Hotels, restaurants, tourist attractions are all finding that this is a way that helps them stand out and show how innovative and sustainable they are. And the Costa Rican Chamber of Ecotourism and Sustainable Tourism, CANA ECO, has also been very supportive. And I also want to give a shout out to Adventure Travel, which is a Dutch family that is especially catering to European tourism. Europeans tend to be much farther ahead than people from the United States in using electric cars and wanting electric cars, but people in the States are coming along fast. The government has also been very supportive, especially the First Lady's office and the President's Commission to coordinate infrastructure, mobility, and territorial planning. They've actually just created a commission on electric mobility, and we're going to have a subcommittee that's specifically for the Ruth Electricas Costa Rica. The national utility is very interested in selling more electricity, and so they are generally supportive, as is the Costa Rica Tourism Institute and the Ministry of the Environment and Energy. So as this has been a prototype, there are many lessons that we have learned in the process. I think one of the most important is that people with electric vehicles want 240 volts. If they're staying in a hotel, 110 is usually enough for them to charge overnight. But if they're just going to a restaurant, or they've only got a couple of hours to charge their car, it's really important to have a 240 plug. And so we're in the process of encouraging local businesses to offer a 240 plug in addition to their 120 plug. 120 plugs are still great, and it's good to have both, especially for people with electric bikes who are just moving around locally with electric bikes. Another is that it's really important to protect these plugs from the weather. So we've just experienced more than 60 millimeters of rain from Hurricane Eta, and I'm sure many of you in the rest of the Caribbean have also just been experiencing that, and many other hurricanes. So these plugs really need to be protected from the weather. And we're also finding that we need to fine-tune the technical requirements, and all of this is going to be included in the manuals that we are producing. Some of the challenges, one of the challenges that we have that probably the rest of you don't have, is that in Costa Rica, only the national electric company is allowed to accept payment at charging points, which is why our signs say that the businesses will accept donations or contributions for the charge. Legally, they're not able to do that, but that is something that we, with the help of ASOMOVE, are working on changing, because it is a disincentive for businesses to offer charge if they are if they can't guarantee that they're going to be getting something back for it. Another, that's especially true with the L2 chargers. Another challenge is to motivate more rental car companies to offer electric cars. So National now has 10, but they're only offering it to their elite group, their elite members, which doesn't do much good for many of their other customers. And it's really a chicken and an egg phenomenon. Hertz several years ago started offering electric vehicles, but stopped because of range anxiety. So if we can solve the range anxiety by making available charging points wherever people need it, then we have resolved that. So we continue to work with the national electric companies. And then another big challenge is, how do we measure and monitor how much electricity is being used, how often these charging points are being used? We are working with, and that we need that information to understand, how much we're really offsetting, how many emissions we're really reducing. And it's also only fair to businesses that they know how much electricity that they're using, and the National Electric Company wants to know this as well. So we're working with a company named GreenPow, and we just need to raise $25,000 in order to create the prototype of this system and be able to try it out here. And once we've got it, this is something that could be used not only all over Costa Rica, but all over the world. So if there are other people that are interested in this who are listening online, please get in touch with us, and we would love to collaborate and perhaps find a sponsor together who can help work with us on that information technology. I just wanted to include this slide. I know that you've also been talking about the possibility of solar, especially on islands. I think that wind and solar is one of the ways to produce the clean energy for electric vehicles. And this is a solar charging station in near Santa Cruz, California. So 15 years ago, most of us didn't really know much about Wi-Fi. Maybe people had never even heard of it. But now, businesses who don't offer Wi-Fi are really left behind. It's one of those basic services that people expect. Offering electric charging stations and having the ability to be able to plug in your car is going to be one of those things in 15 years that we hope will be standard around the world. And I hope that all of you are interested in becoming part of that change. It's just like having a cell phone and plugging it into the wall and being able to use Wi-Fi. So thank you very, very much. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Katy, for your presentation. I think it's very inspiring. I didn't know the numbers of how much tourism Monteverde had, but it's really impressive. I think that talking to such a big industry, such an important industry for the citizens, it must be pretty strong position they have in not changing anything, because it may go out, but just taking that idea and transforming it and putting the electric vehicles into even better tourism, even better position for all. I think it's a great idea. I hope it's also inspiring for our colleagues in the Caribbean, because I know that also tourism for them is very, very important. That's why the inspirational speech that you just made about how to link those both and make the best out of it for the two industries is amazing. I must say that. I also thought about myself going to Monteverde and willing, to rent a electric car, not just because I work on daily basis on electrification, but also just, to prove it out, just to say, okay, may this fit for my lifestyle, may this fit for my daily needs. And just having the opportunity to rent that and, to go around and visit and do all these touristic visits to the forest in an electric car, and making sure that it actually works, and I don't have to do the big investment. I don't have to to get in a big loan for 5 years to get an electric vehicle, for just to go on tourism and do it. I think it's a great idea. If I ever go, and I hope I will, I will do that for sure. And the other thing that actually amused me is that it is this bottom up approach on how you can revamp the tourism, but you get all these other actors engaged in and helping and fostering the same idea. That kind of work that actually make things last, right? Because it is engaged with the population, but also, as you say, with the First Lady's office and the national government and all the others, all of them, all the other actors that are really, really important to the project. But we're engaged throughout the bottom-up approach. I think it's really important to see how how you can see yourself and your industry differently in a better way, in a more innovative way to the future, and get the support that you need to make that real. So I think that is really nice. And I will say that please, as soon as you get the manuals, let us know, because I think it can be really interesting for many other parts of the world, many other regions, touristic regions that do, trust that the economy are based on that economy, and that need to look to the future and how can that be. So thank you so much. We do have some questions. There's this question from Argentina, say, does the project address somehow the management of electric batteries and their recycling?
Well, there are two kinds of electric batteries. There are the regular kinds that we have in car, the lead ones, or the gel batteries, and then there are the lithium batteries. We personally are not addressing that, but we are working with people at the Technological University in Cartago and also the University of Costa Rica in San Jose. And they've got students doing projects on how can you use used lead batteries to receive a solar charge and then use that charge for charging electric vehicles. So that can be a way to use old lead batteries, which also are a challenge. And then the other idea is, okay, how do you take used lithium batteries from automobiles and then again extend their life by using them in that same similar way for receiving a solar charge and then charging a vehicle or other uses. So we can't do everything, but we do know that the battery technology is changing fast in the world, and there are some much cleaner batteries that are coming out. And so I think that we just have to encourage that improvement in technology wherever it is.
Yeah, I think that idea on how to, I mean, this work with the academics, the ones that actually are on the top front of the innovation, and how to use and reuse those batteries. I think that is also really important. And as you said, the ETA destroy that has been done in many countries in the Caribbean and the Central American region, that could also lead to thinking about how batteries can provide a second use on emergencies, right? How can these batteries actually work in much more ways than only for people moving in cars or in other vehicles? So yes, thank you so much. There's another question. They say, congratulations for the beautiful initiative. What about hydrogen transportation? Are you considering hydrogen alternatives, hydrogen vehicles as an alternative also?
Again, we as a little community grassroots effort have not been directly involved in that, but Monica Raya has very much been in touch with Franklin Chan, who's a Costa Rican astronaut who came back and created a hydrogen cell company and is very much working on hydrogen cells here. The biggest challenge with hydrogen cells is that it takes a lot of energy to provide the hydrogen, to put in the hydrogen cells. And it's a technology that has all kinds of potential, but we're not there yet. And we need that action. We need to act now. If any of you guys almost have heard Cristiana Figueres talk, and you've probably seen Cristiana Figueres give her talk on, you know, this is how fast we need to, if you think about, this is the amount of carbon that we're putting into the atmosphere. In the next 10 years, we need to cut that in half. And then from 2030 to 2040, we need to cut it in half again to here. And then between 2040 and 2050, we need to cut that in half again. So hydrogen is really great, but we need to act now as fast as we can to reduce our emissions. And so much of it is coming from transportation that and from electrical production, that this is one of the ways that we can do it now. And we have these plugs in our walls, and it's a pretty simple technology compared to hydrogen cells. So, and it's something that people are ready to adapt and ready to use.
I think also that the short time, it is critical, right? We cannot wait much more to actually provide these incentives or these ideas for people to get in electric cars right now and start changing from the beginning. So yeah, I do have a question in terms of different restaurants and hotels and companies that have put chargers on their, or provide the service for charging. Do you have any estimation of if they are getting more people, or they are getting, well, the pandemic, I think that it might have changed everything, but maybe before the pandemic, did they feel that they were getting more people in?
Well, it's interesting. I think that there are certain hotels that really know how to sell it, and certain hotels that are already selling themselves as carbon neutral hotels or extremely sustainable hotels. And those hotels already had that advantage, and this helped put it over the top. And they also were some of the first hotels to say, okay, I'm gonna offer the 240 charging point. And so some of it has come down to the individual marketing of the hotel. And I think that there's certain hotels that were among the very first ones. I could say Los Pinos has probably been one of the places that's definitely benefited from being one of the first hotels. There are others that I think didn't put as much effort into presentation, and you know, there are a couple that just said, okay, here's an extension cord, which is not acceptable, and didn't make it as visible, and didn't try to sell it as much. And those people aren't getting the benefit, or haven't gotten the benefit as much. But again, the pandemic we only launched the Ruth Electrica in August 2019. In March 2020, the pandemic hit. And so it's all very young, and we're still learning. And
Yeah.
we have a lot of experience yet to have.
Yes, that I was when I was doing the questionnaire, I realized that there is not much time to actually prove if it changed, but it only, I mean, I was also thinking about the rental cars that you say how many rental companies do offer the electric vehicles, and I've seen that it happens kind of the same thing in other countries, saying that because electric vehicles are still in this high or very luxury class of vehicles, meaning that you may have the BMW, you may have the Porsche, you may have these really luxury cars, then obviously renting them out is normally more expensive and is normally not that easy as it is a normal combustion internal combustion engine car. And I think that, I don't know if you feel, but it can also be related to the offer that it actually happens in Costa Rica in terms of electric vehicles, because what we see is not only that people do not demand electric vehicles, but it is also that there are not many electric vehicles that can fit my needs, because I don't need a luxury car. I need an electric car, I need a normal electric car that will move me from here to my work or from him, whatever. But then I cannot find it in my country because nobody is selling it. So I was thinking that it may happen the same thing until there is a huge movement towards the offer of normal standard electric vehicles that people can actually afford without being such a luxury product.
Well, fortunately in Costa Rica, there is a law that helps incentivize electric vehicles, as there is in Norway and several other countries. And so that has been helpful for increasing the number of electric vehicles in Costa Rica. The rental car companies really don't have experience with electric cars. And so they make their money actually by selling their rental cars at a certain age. When they know they get to a certain number of miles, they'll sell that car, and they actually make more money by selling used cars than they do by renting them out. So part of what's happening right now with National is that they are trying to find out where that sweet spot is of how long they should keep it before they sell it, because rental car companies like to rent new cars. So that's part of what's going on. The pandemic's not going to help that process. It's slowed it all down. An alternative to that has also been using hybrid vehicles, which have been much more popular around the world. And the Mitsubishi Outlander that Adobe has rented also has the advantage that it's a little bit higher and better for rural areas in Costa Rica. So, but what you said about demand is really, really important. So when people are traveling, it's important for them to be inquiring and asking about electric cars. And one of the things that we can do is work with electric mobility associations in Europe and the United States to have them help create the demand here. And again, it's something that gradually builds. The press that we've gotten, and also the outreach that we've done with tourism agencies and with the rental car companies, has also been very important. And again, it's all, who are the pioneers? Who are the innovators? Who are the ones who are willing to take that first risk? They have the advantage of being pioneers, of having the reputation of being innovators, of distinguishing themselves and showing how outstanding they are. But at the same time, they're taking risks. And so it's a greater risk for a company to buy an electric car to rent than it is for us to have businesses just offering charging points.
Yep. So we have some other questions. It says, are you considering the possibility of transferring your knowledge to another national parks of Latin America? And do you think it is scalable?
Oh, it's definitely scalable. And we would like to have rutas eléctricas en todo el mundo. We'd like to have this system become the norm in the world. And so yes, and when we have the manuals that we have that we're producing, we will definitely make them available to everyone online. It will probably be both on the CORCLIMA website, corclima.org, and it will also be on the Ruth Electrica's Costa Rica site, which we are in the process of building now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have one from Brazil. It says, what an inspiring project. How was the technology performance differ from initial expectations? And there's another question that says, the natural environment has pointed any specific requirement not previously thought in the terms of battery capacity or vehicle efficiency? So I think the second
Can you
one,
repeat that last
yeah, the
question?
last one, I think the natural environment, I guess, is the rural part of traveling the rural part, has pointed any specific requirement not previously thought in terms of battery capacity or vehicle efficiency. Meaning, I think that it means that if there has been any special things that about the technology, vehicles or battery that were not thought at the beginning, and that you must have changed on the process.
Well, I'm not an engineer, and I'm very much learning about all of these things. And again, we are focusing on the charging aspects of it rather than on the national technical requirements. I don't think that nationally there are special requirements for vehicles or for batteries. In terms of what we've learned about the charging points, we know that all of them need to be grounded, but we also are learning that, okay, cables have to be a certain thickness if they're really going to be letting the charge flow. And recently, one of the engineers from the National Electric Company, who's part of the National Association for Electric Mobility, was part of a retreat that that some of the people who are part of ASOMOVE, the Association for Electric Mobility, and the they were on a retreat at thinking about and tourism, and so it's electric mobility and tourism and how do we promote it. And they all took their electric cars and they were all charging them in, and they all had problems. There was a whole bank of charging points, and they had all kinds of technical problems. That engineer has offered to write the section in our manual on the technical requirements for when you install a charger. And I think one of them is you can't have too many on one circuit, as they did in that place. So this is not rocket science. This is not like hydrogen cells. These are easy things to figure out, and we're going to try to make them as clear as possible in our manuals.
Thank you. I think that I'm expecting those manuals because I think that they will definitely be really useful for many other national parks and tourism destinations, hopefully in the Caribbean with the people that is hearing, but also in many other parts in Latin America. And I think it's a great way to get the electrification going, because when you are on vacation, you can actually take more time if it needs to charge your vehicle, to prove your vehicle. So I think it is a really great idea on doing that way. It actually benefits both electrification and tourism. I think it's perfect.
Well, one of the things that's been very important for us that's very worth mentioning is that, especially during this pandemic, national tourism has been the saving grace. It's been the few people from the cities who've come to the tourist destinations that have basically kept us going in these areas. And national tourism is something to pay attention to. So when you're getting a Ruth Electrica going, it's the local people with electric vehicles that are going to be the people who are going to be able to help you test it out and see how it's all going to work. And ultimately, we don't want this just to be for tourist destinations. We want it to be you know, everybody's got electric cars, and everybody, wherever they're going, on whether it's a business trip or just driving to the city for a doctor's appointment, that they know that they can go and plug in their car when they're not at home.
Yeah, thank you. So there's another question that says, you mentioned the willingness of the North American and European tourists to use electric vehicles. What is your perception of that tourism of Latin America? So Latin American tourists.
I think that it's really just beginning. I know that Costa Rica is #3 in terms of the number of electric vehicles. I think Mexico is first or second, and I'm not sure. I forget the first country. You probably know that. So electric mobility is really just beginning to take off. Chile may be the other country that's way ahead. I know that when it comes to public transportation, they're way ahead. There aren't the numbers of owners of electric cars in Latin America yet. The great thing about Latin America, though, is that a higher percentage of the electric grid is from renewable sources in general. And so in places where coal is being used or other fossil fuels are being used for the grid, there's not really a huge environmental impact of having an electric vehicle. But where the electric grid is increasingly using renewables, that's where the impact really is happening, which is why in the Caribbean, it really is worth looking into having solar panels wherever there are charging stations, or and looking for the ways to not rely on the grid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is particularly important for the Caribbean because not only their emissions but also their external balance between import and exports is pretty much bad for them in terms of importing fossil fuels and importing oil for vehicles. So that's also another reason why they should actually move into that. They should actually look into the electrification. So yes, I think that is pretty important for them also. And I think this idea, this is inspirational project that you have in Monteverde, I hope that will move them into that direction. I really hope so. So we just have 1 minute left. So I will really like to thank you, Katy, for the presentation and for answering our questions. As I said, I think I found the presentation really inspiring for many reasons. As I said, the bottom-up approach and how things can transform not only through the governmental approach, governmental legislation and norms, but also moving the local, the grassroots projects. I think that is pretty amazing how you build that up with all the colleagues in Monteverde. So I think it's really amazing. For all the people that is watching the session, thank you so much for assisting. Thank you so much for being there. We will have our next session on the 24th of this month. It will be in Spanish. It will be related to electric bus prototypes in coming from Paraguay. So stay tuned to that one, and we will have the next one in English on the 8th of December. That we will be talking with the chief of the operation officer from the Barbados Transport Board in terms of the new project that they have with 33 electric buses. So please stay tuned, join us. You will have this amazing presentation and talk in our website in mobilatam.org. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Katy, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.